What's up, guys? I wanted to come and talk to you guys about. I want to talk to you guys about toxicity, and not necessarily just any toxicity, but who is the most toxic between killers and survivors. Now, I know that this has been kind of a hot topic, hot debate, so I wanted to kind of give my thoughts on the situation and kind of let y'all know what I think. Right. So, first of all, a lot of people don't really understand toxicity. Right. Like a lot of people be like, "Oh, well, killers are more toxic because I get slugged every match," or survivors are more toxic because they hit me with a pallet every match. And those aren't really toxic behaviors, right? Like when I think toxic, I think bad manners. Like that was unnecessary because that does nothing for you besides like giving ego boost or something like that. And in my personal opinion, right, I think survivors on average are more toxic than killers. Just on average. Now, before you kill me, before you like, get your pitchforks and say, "Gee, you're being biased" and stuff like that because you're a killer main, etc., etc., etc. But listen to what I gotta say first, right? So, when a lot of people say killers are more toxic, right? They usually look at the things that killers do that kind of annoys them and say that's toxic. Like, oh, freaking, he slugged me for the 4K, or he tunneled me out the game, or stuff like that. But I don't see it that way because those are strategies to win. You get what I'm saying? Now, I know a lot of people say, "Oh, well, you don't need a tunnel to win." Well, if you're playing against like higher level people, you kind of need to tunnel someone to win. If you look at any tournament play, you need a tunnel at some point if they're super good, right? The only thing that I don't condone, and I say this on stream over and over and over again, is face camping and no ed use when it's not needed. You know what I mean? Like, those are the only things I can't condone as a killer, right? If you're proxy camping, I understand why people proxy camp because sometimes they just don't have that pressure and they don't want to give up a hook for free. You get what I'm saying? If you're tunneling, you don't want to just leave somebody off the hook. You might not have enough hook stakes, and the person that's there may be like the runner of the group and can waste all your time. So it makes more sense to get the person that just came off the hook, right? I do what I call a borrowed time check, where I swipe at the survivor that just got off the hook just to check if they got borrowed time, right? Because that usually happens. Like, people usually unhook with borrowed time. So if they get it, they get out. If they don't, well, now you're slugged. Now, here's the issue with survivors and killers, right? So survivors, the reason why survivors are quote unquote harder or do more BM, right? More toxic. Is because the things that a lot of survivors do don't benefit the team. And plus, survivors have the potential to BM each other, right? They have the potential to be toxic to each other. They can sandbag each other. They could point at each other when the killer's by to like let them know where they are. You get those survivors that are working with the killer, etc., 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 and those are all toxic behaviors. When the killer, most killers that do tunnel and most killers that do proxy camp and slug and all that, they're doing that with the express purpose of winning. They're not doing that to be a jerk. It may not be a nice way of winning, but they're doing that with the express purpose of winning, right? While survivors, if you clickety click your flashlight, that may be annoying, it may be a little bit toxic, but it's not really getting you any value besides, you're trying to get his attention, right? You're not like living your best life. Like, hey, I clickety clicked at the freaking blight or the plague. Now my team could get a gen done. Like, no, that doesn't make any sense. Like, your team could have got a gen done without you clickety click, and you could have left with more distance. You know what I mean? Or if you're hook bombing right in front of a killer, like without borrowed time or anything to help your teammate out, that's toxic towards not only the killer but your teammate. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like survivors have more instances where they're toxic, but my issue is that killers, when they are toxic, right, it affects a lot more than what the survivors do, right? So if a killer's, you know, tunneling just for the sake of tunneling, of being a jerk just because he don't like your outfit or something like that, right? He's literally ruining the game for you, and I can understand why that sucks, right? But it's with the intention of he's getting closer to the win. You know, he may win about it as a jerk. I'm not saying that he's not a jerk for it, but it's with the intention of being a win, so it's not really toxic to me. It's just like jerkiness, right? Because there's a big difference between you're winning with quote unquote honor, which means you're like trying to hook everybody 3 times and you're letting people run away and you're giving them a chance and and you're winning the jerk way or the dirty way, where you're slugging and tunneling and proxy camping and all these other things. And you know, but I feel like at the end result you're trying to win. You know what I mean? And that means that you have to employ different methods, because some methods, to be real, you just can't 12 hook every single team that you ever come across. It's just not possible. If a team is really solid, you can't 12 hook them. So you have to employ those methods. Now, that's more about the game design rather than the killer just playing a certain way, but you have to. Now, the thing about survivors, like I said before, a lot of things that survivors do that are quote unquote toxic, like they don't really help anybody. You know, they're teabagging at the gate. We all been there. We all been a lonely Billy with only 1 perk at rank 20 going against a rank 4 for some ungodly reason, and him and his best friend, who also has 8,000 hours or, you know, 400 hours, are teabagging at the gate because GG, easy baby killer. We all had that moment, and it sucks. And it sucks. Like, you can easily just like leave and not, you know, look at them do it, but they're still doing it at the end of the day. They're still being toxic. They're still wasting your time. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they're like, oh, this is giving us more blood points or something like that. That makes no sense. They're not healing for more blood points at the exit gates. They're legitimately trying to be toxic, right? They're legitimately trying to aggravate you. And that's why I think survivors are more toxic on average, right? And when you look at people talk about like killers and survivors and toxicity, you got to realize that the DBD community, at its core, since it is asymmetrical, it's going to be divided. Like, survivors are going to, of course, be more prone to look at survivor-sided things because they play survivor. And killers are more prone to look at killer perspective because they're killers, right? But if you look at it from really unbiased standpoint, without really trying to view everything as that killer does as them just doing it, because I've been there. I've been where I've only had 1 hook for like 4 gens gone. Now, if I was to play nice, I could have been like, all right, I'm just gonna keep trying to chase them and hope that something happens. Or I can play dirty and just tunnel a person out the game, you know, slug everybody. And at that point, it's not for the purpose of being a jerk. It's for the purpose of, I need to catch up. I feel like a lot of killers suffer from that mentality because they really be trying to play the quote unquote fair way, but the fair way doesn't get them what they need to get as far as like the win, because nobody likes to lose. I know a lot of people are like, well, the game is just for fun, you ruin it for other people, etc., etc. Well, it's not fun to lose, right? It's not fun to have 3 outs and 4 outs and all these people getting out for no reason. It's not fun to get hooked on the first hook and die automatically. Like, there's no fun in either one of those situations. But the way DBD is balanced and the way DBD is set up, that's inevitable. Somebody's not going to feel good at the end of a DBD match, right? Somebody's not going to be like, oh man, that was an amazing chase. I can't believe he got me there. That was a great moonwalk. Because, you know, if you look at the way DBD is balanced, you look at the map design, you look at the way the killer perks, the survivor perks, everything works. Very rarely will you come across a situation where you're like, oh, well, you know, he did that by mind game. it's usually by like perks, powers, way of overriding loops, things like that. And at that point, survivors don't feel like they're getting outplayed, right? Like people don't feel like they're getting outplayed by Deathslinger because they got shot through a window. You know, people don't feel like they're getting outplayed by Plague because they got threw up over a pallet. But people do feel like they got outplayed when they go against a Blight and he did 3 bounces around the freaking window and hit you. You know, like it's just inevitable. People don't feel like they got outplayed with twins, and they hate that. Same thing with killers. You know, do I feel like I got outplayed because you dead harded to a pallet? Not really, because I had no input on my end. You know what I mean? Like, do I feel like I got outplayed because you sprint bursted to a god loop? No, because that has no input on my end. But it's something that I have to deal with. Now, if you do that and then you click your flashlight, or you point at me, or you do something that doesn't help you instead of getting more distance, at that point you're not doing it with the purpose of trying to have fun. You're doing it with the purpose of trying to like just hurt the other killer because you're GG so good, right? And that's why I feel like survivors just have more potential to do it, because they have so many more ways of winning outside of themselves, right? Like if your teammates are bad, like your teammates are like awful, you have to do so much, so you're probably not focused on clickety click on the flashlight. But if your teammates are doing, you know, decently well, which let's be real, if you're doing solo queue, your team's usually not doing really well, right? Then you're gonna kind of suffer, and that's just the inevitable. So all in all, I feel like toxicity is more on the survivor side, right? Bad manners are more survivor. You'll see survivors do it more, right? But with you're a survivor, you just feel it from killers more, if that makes sense. You feel it when you get tunneled, even though that's not the reason they're tunneling you, right? People, when they get proxy camped, oh, you know, he's a camper, he's so bad, Well, if he's not face camping you, I'm talking about like 2 feet from the hook, he's staring at you, he's saying you can't go nowhere, you live on this hook. Unless he's doing that, you know, he's not like staring right next to you, right? Like, I don't really see much of an issue with that. But that's just me. If you guys agree or disagree, please let me know in the comment section below. I really appreciate you guys. Please leave this video a like. It always helps out the channel. It always helps out me trying to get more exposure on YouTube. And please come check out the Twitch. We always try to have a lot of fun in there. We have some fun survivor matches, some fun killer matches, and it's all just an amazing time. And I would really love to see you guys there. And just FYI, just on the whole toxic thing, like if you look at a lot of people's videos, try to understand it from a point of what do they play the most, because some people do have different values on what is toxic, right? Like some people think that again, tunneling is toxic. I disagree, but you may agree. So it's all based on perspective. But to me, and the way I view it, and the way that I consider toxicity, I think survivors are more toxic on average, right? It does just suck more when a killer is being toxic. It just feels worse. So all in all, I feel like that's a pretty good synopsis of how to really wrap that up, so to speak. But yeah, all right guys, I'll talk to you guys later. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and please have a great day. Okay, all right, peace.
Man, we up, me and K go surround sound. We starting up like a nigga in the first round. Most of these rappers are nervous that we doing these verses. They just clown on purpose like they in a circus. Man, we sell these L's cheap, man, who wants to purchase? Man, these rappers looking weak.